Second chapter, physics, super basic stuff. The function of the hoof. What do you think is the most important function of a foot in general? There's no trick.
Moving.
Moving, yeah. Allowing the horse to move. Yeah, or the person. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah?
Less.
Shock absorption.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love it. This is gonna be easy. This is gonna be easy. Sometimes it takes longer to get there. It's like, yeah, the most simple answer you can give is like, yeah, to allow the horse to move. Absolutely. But I like to show these images and to get people to think when they move and when any animal on this planet moves, what is actually happening to your body. The first thing you think of, super simple, is gravity. So the force of the earth attracting you towards its center, which means that in order to move forward, any animal has to kind of lift its weight up, push it forward, and then land it on the ground. And when you land it, you need shock absorption. Otherwise, one step would be one step too much. Okay, so the whole leg and the whole body has shock absorbing properties. But the hoof especially, so the first thing you should think of when you think foot, and it's the same for a horse, it's shock absorption. Whenever we move, it's like our feet are being hit by a hammer. So we need a device at the end of the limb that is going to be absorbing the shock of that hammer. Why do boxers wear boxing gloves? Why they don't wear steel gloves? What do you think? They will turn pretty ugly to absorb the shock. So then I want you to have a quick look at this picture, and then we move on to this one. Is there anything that comes to mind when you look at this? This is a super healthy frog. It's before the trim, there's little to be done. Is there anything that shocks you, or that what do you think when you look at that hoof?
The frog is really big.
I love it. The frog is big. The frog is massive. If I go and trim that nail nice and short, the frog is basically taking almost 75% of the surface of the whole hoof. Why? I'll come back. Because it's a pillow. And that's what it's supposed to be. Everything on the hoof is important, but the most important is going to be the pad of the back of the foot, the frog. We're going to dive into that deep. Another example, same thing. Massive frog. Does it look pretty? Does it look clean? Does it look balanced? Or I don't care about that. First thing I look at is what's happening right there. What is the quality of this pad? And then of course what's going to be the quality of this pad? Everything else is secondary, even though it's still important. Another example, massive frogs. This is going to be dealing with the shock of the impact of that fairly big animal, actually big body, landing on a fairly small surface, the hoof. And now we're diving inside the hoof. Not for much, not very complex stuff. Because we had a look at the outer structures, so the wall, aka the nail, the sole, aka the pad, the frog, aka the pad. The most important part of the horse's hoof is actually named properly. It is right there, and it is called the digital cushion. So here you've got P3, the bone we're talking about, right there, attached to P2 and then P1, okay? Other bones, the navicular bones, there's another bone underneath there, tendons that hold the whole thing together, but the most important part is right there. Digital, so of the digit, of the finger, cushion is a pillow. That's the most important part. So if this part here is healthy, it's gonna look big, and it's gonna look like basically like tendinous material. So the perfect pillow for the horse to actually land comfortably on the ground. If this is not well developed, that's 80% of the horses I see the first time, maybe 80% plus. If this is not well developed, the horse is not going to be sound. It's only a matter of time before the horse is going to go unsound. And it's going to look then, it has been done over and over and over again with dissections, it's going to look like a small bag of fat. Okay? Now, we can't see that. It's still soft tissue. So even on X-rays, you can only guess the development of the back of the foot. You can't see it clearly, and it's inside the hoof. So there are things, and we're going to learn that today, that you can recognize to try to guess how healthy that is. And the most important indicator on the outside of the foot is which part of the hoof did we talk about? The frog, of course. So that's why it's the first thing we look at. It's like, okay, well, if we have a big, massive, white frog, healthy, dry, in good shape, the horse is probably going to have a well-developed back of the foot, probably going to be comfortable landing on the ground. If it's narrow, deep, infected, thrushy, how do you want the poor horse to actually land comfortably on that? The horse is not going to be sound. This is a horse in theory, okay? So we can talk about a theoretical horse, but this is a real horse. It's a horse in its environment. These are real horses. Same thing, this is a horse in its environment. And guess what? The feet are always in contact with the ground. So the body is in contact with the environment as well. The whole body, everything is connected. That's why I like to have a holistic approach. But the feet have the specificity to be permanently in contact with the ground. What does that mean? They are highly adaptable to the environment. 1 week of rain, you sit on the hoof. 1 week of dry weather, you sit on the hoof. Why? Because it is constantly adapting to the environment the horse is in and to how much that horse moves in that environment. So the hoof is a point of contact, is a zone of transition between the individual and its environment. And the horse is always gonna be working to adapt that hoof so it is the perfect response to the surfaces that the horse is walking on, and very important, how much that horse is walking on these surfaces. It is the function that creates the organ, not the organ the function. So if a horse moves a lot, he's going to create the feet that are needed in order to move a lot. You change the environment, you change the horse, you change the hoof. If this is the environment, welcome to Denmark in the middle of the winter. A lot of us deal with that. Well, then it's going to change the hoof, obviously. When we look at a hoof, very, very simple things. We can make like a first assessment and read basically which environment he's in and how much he's moving. Here, I will say that horse is in a fairly dry environment because I don't see any thrush or any damage done to any of the hoof. And then he maintains a fairly short, this is after the trim, but a fairly short wall and a big frog. Okay, that horse is moving. Very simple stuff. But that looks good. If I look at this, suddenly we see a way smaller frog, super narrow, especially if you compare it to the length of the whole hoof. And this is after the trim, so before I trimmed that horse, the end of his hoof was probably somewhere there. So that tells me, plus all the black spots that you see there and a little bit of damage that is done here, that was probably in a wet environment and not moving enough. Even worse, when you look at this hoof, what do you think? What do you think about the environment and how much that horse is moving? Not moving at all. And the environment, well, he has probably access only to soft surfaces. A horse needs access to hard surfaces to basically get rid of material like this, unless the barefoot trimmers come over. But the horses can perfectly take care of it themselves if they have access to hard surfaces and if they can move on these hard surfaces. Another example, this is looking better, let's say, a more developed back of the foot, a fairly short toe, a short nail, no thrush. Okay, that looks like the environment is fairly dry. That horse has access at least partly to some hard surfaces. He can actually develop a fairly decent foot. If I wrap up this one, 2 things to remember. First one, what is a foot for? Shock absorption. Second thing, horse's hoof is in constant adaptation to its environment and how much the horse is moving in that environment.